Welcome back to the show, everybody. We got a good one for you today. I think we've seen almost everything, but I don't want to say that we've seen everything because we haven't. But I'll tell you what we have seen recently that's brand new. It's dissension in the ranks at the SEC. Oh, that's right. We have a huge disagreement with the chair people at the SEC on how they feel about the SEC lawsuit versus Ripple. Let's just roll that beautiful footage and intro and get into this thing.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Let's keep this as tight as possible today. We have a lot to look at, a lot to go over, and I want to keep it as tight as we can as we move through it because it's not just about the dissension in the ranks that is happening right now as we speak at the SEC, but it's also about the fallout from that and what it will mean for all of us who are XRP investors. Let's get started. This morning, we see from Michael Val 5 Links, XRP has reclaimed its fourth spot on the cryptocurrency ranking website at CoinMarketCap. Let's take a look at it right now. Here we see it's 60 cents, 64.2, and we're up 37.42 on the 7-day. It's nice to see it. We're 1.72 up on the 7-day. So let's see. We'll just put that down here so I can keep a comment. See what's going on here. Okay, so I just want to jot those numbers down for myself. Okay, so 60 cents right now, and we are dealing with the lawsuit. Everybody knows the deal, the class actions and everything that stemmed from that. There is dissension in the ranks, ladies and gentlemen. What's impressive is, if you haven't watched the video I put out yesterday, please go watch it. And it's pretty compelling about how or what may be bringing the price up. And in short, it's either market makers, in my eyes, buying up XRP off the exchanges, bringing the price up without us realizing it, or possibly there's testing being done by customers that are planning to use XRP to scale for their business. And if the price were to return back to the 25-28 cent range, which is what it was in that area before the lawsuit and the restrictions on retail investors in the U.S., I would imagine that testing would be the answer to that if we return back to that price. However, if we don't return back to that price, it would be pretty sound thinking, I think, to understand that market makers are continuing to buy XRP off the exchanges. The fallout would be, is what does that mean if we get a designation that doesn't allow us to buy it in the same fashion that we've been used to buying it on the exchanges? We're going to get into all of that. Let's keep going. So right now, Bitcoin goes mainstream as institutions hold 3% of Bitcoin circulating supply. Oh, I bet maxis are mad about this. Bitcoin maxis, you know, anti-bank, anti-establishment, screw the man, to hell with Wall Street, right? That's their whole mantra and narrative. Well, now 3% of what they hold that they felt so strongly about is now controlled by the entities they don't like, right? This is going to leave a lot of people rather conflicted as the market continues to grow. Michael Val 5 Link says, in a partnership with Accenture, Rick's Bank is conducting a pilot project to develop a proposal for a technical solution for an e-krona that can work as a complement to cash. And what's interesting about this is I just want to remind people how big Accenture is. Remember, Diana Adachi, I interviewed her. She's a brilliant lady, and I interviewed her. I had a great conversation with her on this channel. It is in the newsletter. It is one of the links at the bottom. You should watch that interview. She acknowledges that Accenture was the company that did the due diligence on Ripple when it showed up on the scene and gave the green light to the other financial institutions around the world for Ripple. Don't believe it. That's still true. Rick's Bank is working inside of the BIS Innovation Hub. So that's another thing I wanted to bring up about this. So don't sleep on how big this actually can get here. Okay, another thing I want to get into is get right into the business at hand here. This is XRP-Attorney. And shout out to you, my friend. Does anyone find it fascinating, as I do, that a commissioner at the SEC is begging the SEC for regulatory clarity? That's exactly what's going on here. And it's not just Hester Peirce. Look, we're going to look at some comments here. Attorney Jeremy Hogan from Legal Briefs has really put out some great insight over the last several weeks since all of this has happened at the end of 2020 with the lawsuit from the SEC. And I, for one, am very grateful for all of his perspective and insights that he's sharing. And we're going to get into some of that in a second. But what I wanted to just set the stage here, right, is we saw that the acting chairperson, Allison Heron Lee, put out an issuance here on February 11th that basically took back the ability to negotiate the privilege of a waiver for a Reg D situation that would allow a company that's in a lawsuit with the SEC as a part of that settlement to use Reg D to continue to sell their assets to accredited investors, right? And there, broadly in this, as we move through this material, you will see a reference to the Kitcoin case that went on because of its similarity here. So, all right. So now looking here, and precedent that was set with that case. So looking here is after that Chairman Lee had released that letter saying they were taking back the option to provide that privilege to offer the sales through Regulation D after a settlement with the SEC. She takes that off the table. Essentially what Chairman Lee did was move the goalpost on the field to avoid a discrimination case again from Ripple against the SEC directly. So she tried to release a blanket waiver or an issuance on this letter that would take that away. Well, that is clearly being recognized here by Elad Roisman and Hester Peirce herself. And if you go down here to the bottom of the letter, right in this area right here, which we will move to this tweet from DJ Peter Vass, which lets us see it more clearly. For reasons stated above, we disagree with the acting chair Lee's attempt to rescind that policy by directing the Division of Enforcement to decline recommended contingent settlement offers through the Commission for consideration. As I said, looking to change the goalposts on the field to take away that option for someone like Ripple to have access to that Reg D. Now, what I want to do right now is go right to Jeremy Hogan's video here at 5 minutes and 9 seconds and let him lay this out for about 1 minute and listen to what he says here and makes it even more clear than I can. Listen.
What that means is that Kick Interactive negotiated into the judgment that it could still make use of all privileges under the SEC rules, including selling its coins under Regulation D, which it did. And what is Regulation D? We've talked.
So now before he breaks down Regulation D, so you understand, he's showing you the example of the Kitcoin case and how they were able to make a negotiation and be able to use Regulation D to their advantage to continue to sell. But listen to the exception in Regulation D. It's very important because if it goes this way, it's going to affect everyone who's hearing in this.
Talked about this before briefly, but Regulation D allows you to sell a security by just filing a simple form with the SEC. Very simple and easy to do, as long as you don't advertise the sale, and two, as long as you sell to an accredited investor.
That's what you need to hear right there. Okay? So the reality here is it would appear that Ripple has put forth or collectively worked with the SEC up until now to come up with a situation similar to the Kick case, is what Jeremy Hogan is speculating a bit on, and what we're all speculating a bit on from what we've learned, pieces and parts, should look to suggest that Ripple would be happy to take the Reg D situation in a settlement and change and pivot their position to accredited investors as the hype bar. Well, I ask you, are you an accredited investor? If you're not, then this takes you out of the buying equation, then, doesn't it? It doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but unless you haven't gotten your bags to where you want them to be, right? Because it does seem and appear that this is where they're trying to get this to go. And the dissension in the ranks at the SEC is that they don't agree, and they're pushing back publicly, not just within the SEC, but publicly. They're releasing their disagreement and that they do not feel that Chairman Lee has done the right thing here and that it is going to cause a problem. It tells me that if that situation were just as it were before Chairman Lee released her document, we may have already seen an announcement of a settlement with the SEC and Ripple. And this being the outcome, of having the option to use Reg D, would pivot Ripple away from the noise of the retail investor market. You don't believe it? Listen to this.
We really are partnering with financial institutions, and we're operating within the existing regulatory framework. That's actually always been the bedrock of Ripple's strategy. That's something very important to us. The other thing that I think sets us apart is that we're really changing the infrastructure for cross-border payments, and we're not consumer-facing in any way. So I think that also sets us.
All right. Now you hear two things there. One, she says directly, we are not consumer-facing in any way. And then you hear a resounding from Monica Long, don't you? That's exactly what you hear. Well, listen to it again if you didn't.
Sets us apart is that we're really changing the infrastructure for cross-border payments, and we're not consumer-facing in any way. So I think that also sets.
Yeah, that's that. We do not. Gosh, I wish they would just go away. You can hear it. Okay, now looking at this is 1408 back in 2018 when Dilip Rao was working at Ripple, and he has to explain to everyone on the panel that the noise of the retail market is not what we're looking to capture. And at some point, we're looking to pivot away from that and go to where the real volume and utility is intended to come from, which is sophisticated financial institutions. Listen.
Many people are using cryptos just to buy and sell and make quick gains out of it. Does it hurt the growth of cryptocurrencies, that usage for a quick buck?
So it's kind of chicken and egg. You have to create a marketplace. And right now we have about 150, 200 exchanges around the world that trade in XRP. A lot of it, as you say, is very shallow trading by individuals. And that is not the use case that we are pursuing. What we are pursuing is the use of XRP as a financial asset by sophisticated institutions as a bridging mechanism. So does this hurt or harm? Well, it creates a lot of noise. And we certainly don't want that much noise, but we're waiting. And for example, this last quarter, the bulk of XRP sales were to institutional investors. And as this transitions away from retail to institutions, we'll start to use it for wholesale, financial usage. That's when the turning point will come.
Got it.
There it is, and I got it too. And that's the ultimate goal, right? It doesn't mean that we won't be able to hold it, in our portfolio because we already have it. But I'm sensing that there may be some kind of change in the market in the way this asset is dealt with, that you may not be able to get it in the same manner that you used to. And I think that is a very real repercussion to this case. Listen to Brad Garlinghouse himself tell you that they are not consumer facing and never have been, and he says it a bunch.
These institutional flows. We are not, and to be very clear, we are not focused, I've said this a bunch, the consumer speculator is not our target market. Our target market are financial institutions that we can solve a big problem measured in the trillions of dollars using these technologies.
And there you have it. He just told it to you. You just heard 3 Ripple executives or members that were there at the time. Dilip Rao and Michelle Bond have since left. But they're telling you what it is. Brad Garlinghouse is telling you what it is. So the real deal is what I see is the argument over this SEC and Reg D waiver and the waiver issue is really interesting to me because it's harming the ability for Ripple to settle. Because Chairman Lee is taking that option off the table and saying, I don't want you to even be able to sell to accredited investors, which is just a dirty move right there. Because if it worked for Kitcoin, why isn't it that it can't work for Ripple, right? Somebody's playing heavy-handed ball. But what we do know is that this is exactly what they're facing towards: institutional, sophisticated institutions like this.
I mean, certainly we do know of central banks looking at the XRP ledger as open source technology to issue stablecoins using the XRP ledger. And that may happen, and frankly, it's open source technology. You know, we don't even necessarily have to be involved with that. Now,
and I'll tell you something. There it is. And I will tell you something. What I will tell you is that is the ultimate goal. That is the full-scale intended use of XRP, as well as settling wholesale market back end for derivatives and everything else you can imagine in the FX market, and anything that is an asset of value that's been tokenized and put on the ledger. So at the end of the day, what we're looking at here with this actual negotiation and settlement for Ripple and the SEC is whether or not we will see Reg D used and allowed to be used as it was for the Kitcoin case. Will they put that back in and take back what Chairman Lee has put out? Or will this get even more complicated for Ripple? Will this get even harder to get for you and I? One thing I do know is that one of the very real questions to the settlement of this case is, will retail investors have the same access to XRP as they did before the case was issued? That is one of the very real questions. That's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Make sure you share with someone you know, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Make sure you check out PureVPN, guys. It is one of the many different layers of security that I use when I'm online. Help hide your anonymity, or help protect your anonymity, I should say, online by PureVPN. Make sure you check that out, and all the other links in the description box and the comment section. They are products and services I use each and every day, and they are vetted, trusted links. I'll catch all of you on the next one.